Hello everyone, welcome to SC2 Noob School. Today we're going to be looking at a Zerg strategy. Well, not really a strategy, more along the lines of just a Zerg philosophy on how Zerg units generally want to attack. And basically what I'm going to be covering here is showing the importance of patience in a Zerg attack and surface area. And you'll see what I mean in a minute here. I'm going to go to several different replays and just show some Zerg engagements and show some of the good things and the bad things that different players do in their engagements. But first, I just want to show you what is a bad engagement, okay? So looking at this army here, we've got a lot of Marines, just a handful of Marauders, a few medevacs. The Zerg player has quite a few Mutalisks, a decent number of Mutalisks, some Banelings, about 7 Banelings, and an army of Lings. Okay, now this is going to definitely demonstrate lack of patience as well as a severe lack of surface area on the Zerg's part. Zergs want to wrap around their opponent whenever they're going in for an attack because they have so many units. They need to make this big arc around their opponent. So the Terran player is putting his Marauders on the ramp. The Zerglings can't get in. Health bar is getting in the way. The Banelings are barely able to get in. I don't think they even killed any Marines there. And that was overall just an extremely inefficient attack by the Zerg player. So that was a bad attack. Let's go ahead and jump into some replays and show what could have happened there. Ideally, what I would have liked to have happen is the Zerg player surrender this entire expansion, just say, this is going to go down, possibly throw down an expansion in another place as that's happening, and then wait for the Terran army to try to get out of this choke point. If the Terran player is trying to get out of this choke and the Zerg can come in from all these different angles, then he'll be in a really good spot. Anyway, let's jump into a couple more replays. Alright, so here we have a Terran versus Zerg. You can see just by looking at the resource counts right now that the Zerg took a little bit of a beating at the beginning of the game. He's already, more than 20 supply behind the Terran player, so he's definitely not in a good spot. And this is a time where you need to make your units as cost efficient as you possibly can. And what we're going to see here is the Zerg doing exactly that. So first of all, we can see the army coming in for an engagement. He's got several siege tanks, a lot of siege tanks actually, and just a small army of Marines. He's going to siege up right here. And let's just look real quick at what the Zerg player has. Zerg player has 3 Zerglings, 8 Roaches, 7 Banelings. Looking at the army count, you can definitely see he's way far behind in terms of an army. But obviously, since he's Zerg, he can produce a ton more units right now. That's the other main point that I need to bring up when talking about this, is that Zerg has the power to reinforce better than any other race. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Even if it's just some cheap unit like a Zergling or something, you can reinforce very easily. Okay, so let's look back at this engagement. We might have to watch this several times. What are we seeing here first? Well, we're seeing a lot of patience first. He's got Zerglings in production. There's no reason to attack right now. He's taking some damage, but that's okay. It's okay to take that little bit of damage in order to have a stronger push when your army actually comes out. So he's got, and then also the big main point here is he's spreading his army around. He's got his army of Roaches and Banelings up here, and he's got massing his army of Zerglings up here. And what he's going to try to do is do this big pincer attack, where he's attacking from this direction and this direction at the same time to get a really, really nice surface area on the Terran player. Using a couple Lings right there, and coming in, actually I'm going to back up real quick and be watching the mini-map as this happens. His Roaches are going to come in, and these Lings are going to come in at the same time. Roaches coming in, there we go. Sending, actually, look, this is worth backing up one more single time. I want you to just watch the very first Baneling that actually, or the very first Zergling that comes in here. This Zergling right here, Hero Zergling, gonna sacrifice himself, and basically he's just gonna take 1 tank shot to kill. And that's a sacrificial Zergling. Totally worth it though, because just absorbing a small number of tank shots can actually be huge. So you can see this, the effectiveness of this pincer attack is pretty enormous. This army would have just gotten torn apart if it just straight up engaged on the Terran player. But as you can see, he gets in a relatively decent position, being able to take out quite a few siege tanks there. I'm going to back this up just one more time so we can watch this from the Zergling perspective. The Zerglings are actually going to come in here and just absorb a lot of the tank shots, as well as get down a few of the tanks themselves. So the Roaches are going in, absorbing both of these 2 tank shots. This tank is taking shots at the Zerglings, and that's actually a lot of damage that's not coming down on these Roaches, and it's letting the Roaches come in and just quickly pick off some of these siege tanks. So that was a really, really good engagement by the Zerg part. He does lose this game, but still a very nice engagement. Alright, let's go to the next replay. Alright, so here we are on another game, and this is really going to show the importance of surface area. Let's look at the army real quick. We got 9 Marauders, 6 Hellions, 2 Siege Tanks, and 5 Marines, versus an army of Roaches and Lings and Banelings. Now, this army is exactly built to kill this kind of army. Marauders are amazing against Roaches. Unsieged Siege Tanks are amazing against Roaches. Hellions are good against Lings, and okay against Banelings. And then Marauders are okay against, or Marauders are fairly good against Banelings. Not in terms of damage, but in terms of taking damage. So let's watch this attack. And again, this is going to be another example of surface area being such an enormous factor. Looking at the army tab real quick, this is basically even, so, you know. Alright, positioning of the army. Okay, let's look at this real quick. Got 5 Roaches down here, his army of Banelings, Roaches, and Lings coming in here. And let's just watch this attack happen real quick. Banelings coming around the top side, top of the ramp, got Roaches coming in from the bottom, and the rest of the army coming in through this side. This army does not stand a chance against such an enormously good surround from the Zerg player. And he's actually able to take out what is like the direct counter to what he had. I hate to say the word counter, but what are you gonna do, you know? Also, I want to point out how important it was to stay on creep in this battle. This battle would not have gone nearly as well if he had not stayed on creep. So that goes back to the old patience thing I was talking about, is waiting for the Terran's army to get on the creep and then engage. That is such a huge concave for the Zerg player. No army, no matter what composition you have, even if it's directly built to counter your main unit, Roach, is not going to stand a chance against an arc that good. Alright, so we got one more replay. Okay, so this is actually the same game, but there's some really interesting engagements that happen here. Looking at the units tab, we can see the Zerg player now has a nice sized army of Mutalisks, 15 Mutalisks, a lot of Zerglings, 46 Zerglings, decent number of Roaches, just a couple Banelings, and the Terran player is still on his exact same unit composition of mostly Marauders, some Siege Tanks, and just a smattering of Marines. And this is really going to highlight the importance of patience. Let's just watch this happen. This is actually rather amazing that he has the ability to stay cool under pressure like this and use his army to be as cost effective as possible. Okay, so we're mostly going to be watching this army of Mutalisks, and as you can see, there's not that many Marines. There's just a small number of Marines to take out these Mutalisks. So what the Zerg player is thinking is, well, there's no reason to attack with the rest of my army when I can just poke in and do as much damage as I can with these Mutalisks. Yes, there are some Marines to turn him away, although I think he could just turn around and kill all these Marines. In fact, I know he could. But, you know, he doesn't realize that, or doesn't prefer to do that at the moment. So he's just staying with, just harassing with these Mutalisks. Notice, entire army right here, gigantic army right here. He's only attacking with half of his army because he doesn't need to. Any other piece of his army that he chose to throw in there would just be a total suicide on this Terran army. So he's just attacking with those Mutalisks. And as you can see, still being extremely patient. His lair is under attack. That is definitely not good, but he knows he can be much more cost effective just doing this. Look, getting this Marines out of position, coming in, taking out, what was that, 5, 6, 7 tanks? Crazy, crazy number of tanks. once all of those Marines are dead, and then he can finally come in with the rest of his army, clean up everything else. He does lose his lair, but he's got such a strong counterattack to follow that up. Look at this army tab. This is 2,000 and 4,600 resources above the Terran player. So that just goes to show, again, the importance of patience when making that attack. If you've got a unit that can hardly be hit, just use that unit. Don't send in the other units. They're just going to be cannon fodder on the siege tanks. I'm just curious what the army tab looked like a couple minutes ago. So there you go. Zerg players hardly lost anything. Terran players lost everything. Anyway, I hope this was educational for everyone. Obviously, there is plenty more to talk about, especially with talking about just Zerg versus Terran in terms of engaging. But I think just keeping those two ideas of surface area and patience in mind can really improve your play and improve the types of decisions that you'll make when choosing to make an engagement. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. GG.